Premananda Haribo. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glorious to the assembled devotees. All glorious to Shri Guru and Gauranga Shlapad Jai Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Budle Shimali Bhaktivedanta Swamini Chinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nivishesha Shunyavali Pashacha Desha Tarni. Wow, very impressed with all these nice devotees here this morning. So, does anyone want to ask a question or have a topic they want to hear about in Krishna consciousness? Yeah.
We read often that Lord Krishna is equal to everyone.
Yeah.
Then how do we understand that he does special favor to his devotees?
Well, that's explained in the Bhagavad Gita. That's very easy. Krishna says, Samoham sarvabhuteshu na me dveshosti na priha. He says, I have no favorites, no enemies. I'm equal to everyone. But one who renders a service unto me and loves me, then I basically reciprocate with him in that particular capacity. Another verse in the Bhagavad Gita in the 4th chapter, Yeyatamam prabhajante tam sadaiva bhajamiham mamavartmanu vartante manushaparta sarvasa. As they approach or reciprocate with me, I reward or reciprocate with them accordingly. In other words, Krishna favors his devotees because the devotees favor Krishna. Not because he's partial.
You can say, Maharaj, that because of their service, Krishna becomes biased?
Well, because of their love, yeah. Krishna becomes biased, but he's still equal. Because anyone, at any time, can decide to be a devotee. Anyone. Even, the greatest demon can surrender to Krishna, and the Krishna favors him. So it's not that Krishna hates the demons. Actually even gave Ravana the chance to surrender to him, and which Ravana didn't do, except at the very end after he got killed. So Krishna will accept anybody. He doesn't discriminate according to race, religion, national origin, gender, or anything like that. He just doesn't. Everybody has an equal opportunity to surrender to Krishna. And when you surrender to Krishna, Krishna says in the Gita, not in the Gita Bhagavatam story, that Sadhava Hridayam Mayam Sarvanam Hridayam Aham Varanyatayena Janati Naham Tebyo Manakapi. Anyone know that verse? Krishna says, because the sadhus have me in their hearts, in other words, that everyone has Krishna in their hearts, but because the sadhus are meditating on Krishna, thinking of Krishna in devotion in their hearts, then Krishna says, I meditate upon the sadhus, and the sadhus are in my heart. Just like you find Hanuman. He rips open his chest, and who was there but Sita Ram. So you wouldn't want to rip open Ram's chest, but anyway. But in a figurative sense, that if you were able to see Lord Ram's chest inside Lord Ram's chest, his consciousness, you'd see Hanuman. Interesting, isn't it? Of course, you'd also see Sita. They all have a place. Ram's chest is big enough for everybody. It's not that, he's not like us, that we only have room for 1 or 2 people in there. We have room for Krishna. If you have room for Krishna, everybody fits in. And if you have room for one person, nobody else fits in. Krishna. Like if you're maturely in love, Krishna doesn't fit in your heart. I mean, in there. Really, in your heart means you're meditating on it. So Krishna says in the Bhagavatam, Because the sadhus do not know anyone else other than me as theirs. I do not know anyone else other than them as mine. Madanyat tena janati aham tebyo managape. And yeah, that's actually a very wonderful verse that the Lord states in regard to, I think it was Ambarish Maharaj in the Bhagavatam. So anyway, that's reciprocal, because you could become a sadhu. How do you become a sadhu? By chanting Krishna's names with devotion. Very, very simple. And serving Krishna's devotees. Mahat Seva Muhur Vimukte, Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Shastrakari, Lavamatra, Sadhu Sangha Siddhi. Sarva Siddhi Hoy. So any one of you can become a pure devotee in an instant if you want. Or you can take 10,000 years, and as we were discussing in class, you can take birth in the heavenly planets in the next life. Or you can take birth in a rich family, or if you're very advanced, what happens if you're very advanced? Does anyone know? What did I say in class? What does Krishna say as a key thing? You take birth where? What? Huh?
In a religious...
No, in a devotee family. If you're very advanced, your next birth will be in a Vaishnava family. If you're a little advanced, you go to the heavenly planets first and enjoy with all the apsaras. And then after some time, you come down to the earth planet and you're born in a wealthy family. Punja family. Think about that. Of course, there's no guarantee. You just see people born in a pious family, a punya family, make it play words here, and sometimes they get arrested for selling drugs, right? So even if you're born in a rich, happens. Even if you're born in a rich family, there's no guarantee you're going to take to Krishna consciousness, because you can be very attached to the wealth. So for those who Krishna especially favors, they put them in a situation where they can't get attached. There's another verse I quoted in class, where Krishna puts them in a situation who takes everything away, so all they can do is chant Hare Krishna. And Krishna puts us in those circumstances when we're not so serious about Krishna consciousness. And Krishna actually gives us a reminder when he takes all of our material abilities, our health, or our friends and relatives away from us. Happens. And then we have no other recourse, no other alternative other than to just chant Krishna's names. So anyway, Krishna's equal. You decide Krishna consciousness immediately. You decide Maya immediately. It's your decision. You can become any pure. You can become any status or attain any status of devotional service by your desire. Okay. Other questions? Anyone else have any questions? You have, raise your hand. Question.
I have my question is to the nurse now. My question is the depth of Krishna consciousness. Like usually in swimming in the deep ocean while we have barely touched the water.
Yeah.
So the distance and the distance between us and swimming in the deep ocean.
Yeah. So actually, I don't know. Well, of course, many of you don't swim because your parents were afraid that you were going to drown, right? So they didn't teach you how to swim. That's a standard thing in Fuji. Therefore, you're more likely to drown, isn't it? Think about it. My parents, they just threw me in the water. And if there's a flood here, I can just swim. No problem. One time we had trouble going to go to the airport in Nandi because it was a hurricane, a cyclone. And I told Sanatan, I said, I can swim across this. It's not a problem. I carry my bag on my head. So, and he said, no, I can't swim. I said, that's your problem. Like that story, you know, the boatman story, where there was a man being carried across the ocean, not the ocean, of course, a lake, by a boatman. And he was a very intelligent man. He was asking the boatman if he knew anything about mathematics. And the boatman didn't know any of that. He was just a boatman. And the boatman kept saying, no, I don't know that. And the man kept saying, then 25% of your life is useless. And then after that, I asked him another question. 50% of your life is useless. Another question, 75% of your life is useless. Then there's a big storm and the boat capsized and he turned over. And they were both in the water. And the boatman said, do you know how to swim? And the man said, no. And then the boatman said, then 100% of your life is useless. So anyway, anyways, I'm not going to tell you to learn how to swim because you have this superstition you're going to drown. So you're all, actually, fear is based upon lack of knowledge. It's interesting. Like people are afraid of swimming because there's a lack of knowledge that they can learn how to swim. You understand? They're afraid they're going to drown. So the same way, fear of in this material world is due to lack of knowledge. And Krishna says, Abhaya Sattva Samsuni Yani Yoga Velastati. When one acquires knowledge, one will give up fear. And Prabhupada was Abhaya Chavamadavinda. So anyway, getting back to the point about the water and diving deeply in devotional service, for those of you who go swimming, know that sometimes, of course here in Fiji it doesn't apply, but sometimes you go swimming in a body of water, it's very cold. I remember one time I was in Finland, and devotee said, you should go swimming, there's ice in the water. It's very cold. And they said, it's healthy for you. And so I just put my little toe in, and I'm not going in. And they said, no, you have to jump in. Jump in? I said, I'm not going to jump in. And then they say, just try it. So I jumped in. Then it was nice, at least, because it was ice water. It was nice for about 45 seconds until I couldn't feel any part of my body anymore. And then they told me, well, the next thing you do is you go into this thing called the sauna. You've heard about that before? In Finland, everybody has a sauna in their house. Sauna means like a room. It's so hot, it's like 100 degrees centigrade inside. Yeah. And they sit there, and you stay there until you die. No, you stay there until you're almost dead, and then you jump in the ice water, and then you go back and forth. Anyways, interesting experience. It's not prescribed for those who have a heart condition. Because then you actually die. But anyway, that's different cultures. They have different standards of enjoyment. It's interesting. Every culture has a different standard of enjoyment, and their standard of enjoyment is to freeze to death and boil to death. So, apart from that, I learned that sometimes you just got to jump in. Sarvadhamma Puchaja Mami Kami Shanaram Braja Ham Twami Sarvabhokyu. Moksha Yashabi, don't worry. Just jump in the water and everything's all right, and then you can enjoy. But we have so many doubts. Is there actual enjoyment in Krishna consciousness? We're holding on. Just like the story of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur told about the marriage party that was trying to go from one shore of the river to another portion of the river. And so they all got in the marriage party. They were planning for the marriage the next day. They all got in the boat and went to sleep because it was at night. And the boatman said, I'll take care of everything. So they slept. Woke up the next morning, and they were in the same place. They were wondering, the boatman was rowing the whole night. But he was rowing the whole night and he had left the anchor in. So the boat didn't go anywhere. So in the same way, we oftentimes leave this anchor in, this lack of faith in Krishna consciousness or attachment to things in this world that we think are going to save us. Interesting verse in the Bhagavatam. Deha patra kalachadisu atma shanaisha satvavi tesham pramata niranam vashanapi napashati. We have these things called fallible soldiers, things that will save us. I mean, obviously we all have friends and everything like that, but they're not going to be able to save us at the time of death, unless they're devotees, of course. They can save us. But we have all these different things, all the things we own, relationships we have. They're not going to be able to save us. I remember a practical example. One time, I was with a devotee who was, I would think he was getting ready to pass away. And his wife and mother were there. And they were saying to him, and they were using his legal name, which I'm not going to tell you the name. Let's say it was Paul. It wasn't Paul, but I'm just making it up because it's an actual real person. And they were saying, Paul, don't leave us. We love you. We love you. And I'm, at the same time, this is in the ICU, I'm looking at the monitor, the heart rate, oxygenation rate, and I said, if things start to go south, going south means he's going to die, I'm kicking these rascals out of here and just chanting Hare Krishna. So fortunately, he did leave, but it was just like this close to leaving his body. And if he had left his body while his wife and mother were saying, dear Paul, we love you, we love you, we love you, then, he would have become some material lady in the next life. You imagine leaving your body. We love you, we love you, we love you. That's why we were talking about this previously. That's why generally in the Vedic system, the ladies were not allowed in the crematorium. Did you know that? Nowadays they allow the ladies in the crematorium, but it's not auspicious to cry in the crematorium. I remember another story. I was at someone's funeral, the crematorium, and we went there with the devotees, and we had this kirtan, chanting and everything. I'm thinking, how auspicious for the person who's going to be cremated for the body. And then all these ladies came in and started, actually about 50 ladies. It was like the most painful experience I've ever had in my life. 50 ladies crying simultaneously. Well, in India, you can pay for professional crying. They have, I think they're eunuchs or something like that. That's how they make their living. You pay them 10 rupees a piece to cry at a funeral. So the ladies were all crying, and their husbands, because they were controlled by them, told me, you got to stop the kirtan and allow our wives to cry. And I thought, how inauspicious. I had to listen. Because, the husbands were, anyway, they were our life members. So I had to listen. I thought, what a stupid thing. So that's what we call fallible soldiers. People who are not going to take us back to Godhead. Because really, if someone wants to be a husband or wife or spiritual master or whatever, protector or king, they have to be ready to save people from birth and death. That's not a fallible soldier, that's a real soldier. But we're attached to all these fallible soldiers in this material world that are not going to save us from life, from death, or save us spiritually. So there's that verse. This body is another fallible soldier. It's not going to save us. Anyway, not going to get into the details. It's a very heavy verse in the Bhagavatam. Admashanaishas Hadvapi. They're temporary. Tesham Satati, Tesham Pramata. We're in illusion. Nidanam. We're in ignorance. And we think we see. Pashanapi, the Pashyati, but we don't actually see. Those are, you see, but you don't see. And you know that verse is talking about. Very nice verse.
Beginning of second chapter.
Yeah, beginning of second chapter. Pashanapi, the Pashyati. We see, but we don't see. Because we're attached to everything that we think will save us. Our bank balance, our body, all these external things are fallible soldiers. In other words, they're soldiers. Let's say you're going to battle and you're fighting there, you're the king, and then you notice that all your soldiers run away because they're afraid. That actually happened in the Ramayana. When Kumbhakarna came out, you know the story, Kumbhakarna came out, and Kumbhakarna was eating all the monkeys. How was he eating so many monkeys? Sometimes they were coming out from his ears or something like that. So many of the monkeys just ran away, and Lord Rama said, don't run away. Sugriva also said the same thing, don't run away. So those are called fallible soldiers, which are not real soldiers. So we should not have fallible soldiers. We should have infallible soldiers. I mean, soldiers stick with us and take us back, going back to God. And those are the devotees and spiritual master, teachers, anyway. Those are our infallible soldiers. Soldiers do not be bad. Okay, I think it's time for prasadam, right? All right, thank you very much for the nice questions. All glories to Prabhupada, prasadam.